Ready for this week's guest? Good, because that's what's next on the Geek Speak Show.
Okay, we're back. Now, we've all read Edgar Allan Poe, whether by choice or because it was assigned in school. We didn't have a choice then. But we've also seen, heard, or read several adaptations of Poe stories over the years. So why not another one? Poe Noir is the acclaimed comic series featuring tales of murder, madness, and mayhem, all inspired by Edgar Allan Poe and film noir. Now, if you just ask yourself, hey, what's film noir, Henry? Well, let me put it this way for this audience. It's what you're going to see on May 27th on Amazon Prime starring Nicolas Cage, that Spider Noir show. Yeah, that's a little explanation of what it is. Poe Noir was created and written by Tim Zajac, and it's illustrated by Graham Sisk, along with a few guest artists that we'll probably bring up in a little bit. And joining me to talk about Poe Noir is Tim Zajac. Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So before we get into Poe Noir, let's talk about you. Let's get your origin. Are you a comic book writer exclusively, or do you write for other mediums other than just comic books?
I'm pretty multimedia. I have a background in television and film, and I spent many years in my younger days doing theater. So those are sort of my my main pillars creatively: comics, TV, film, theater, and they all kind of revolve around one another. I work in TV. I've been a filmmaker. I've made a handful of shorts, got some festival play, and I keep going back to my theater work too. It was quite a while ago now, but I worked with playwrights quite a bit, and I directed a handful of new plays, and that was really instrumental too. In that you learn to work with actors, and it's funny how that kind of translates to comics because Graham is my main collaborator on this project, and it's almost like the way I write for him and the way I work with him is very similar to the way I would be working with an actor if I were directing.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying that, actually, I was thinking, and really, if you think about it, because when did you start writing comics? Was that there before stage and film, or when did you start writing or thinking about writing comic books?
That is more, it's over 10 years, almost 15 years now, but that's more recent, relatively to my theater, film, television work. This idea kind of came about sitting in film class, learning about film noir and its connections. If you follow American literary history from film noir, those movies of the 40s and 50s, mm-hmm. they tie to dime novels and the pulp novels, the pulp writing from a few decades earlier. And that tradition goes all the way back to Poe. So I was learning about that in film class, and it made sense to me to bring those ends together to adapt Poe in the style of noir, which he influenced over a century later.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying is, as you were saying a minute ago, if you think about it, comic books, in a way, they kind of look like storyboards, film storyboards. Mm-hmm. So I would assume for you it's pretty easy to make that transition because you're already used to working with storyboards. And like you said, it's like directing when you talk to Graham. So it was, I don't want to speak for you, but was it a pretty smooth transition going from stage to now writing for comic books?
Yeah, I have no formal training in comic books. So I just took everything I've learned from television, film, theater, and the way I'm used to looking at screenplays and teleplays, and that's exactly how I started writing for comics and how I would format them initially. It's evolved because you grow with your collaborators, and I think I write more for Graham specifically now than I did when I was younger and when we first started working together. So it's less generic film, television, screenplay form, and more a format that I've it's still very, very similar, but it's a lot more tailored for Graham. And there are even places where I'm even calling him out in the script going, oh, I know what you might like here, and I want you to try that thing that is inspiring you when you see this. So,
well, sure, some people are thinking also why adapt Edgar Allan Poe stories instead of coming up with an original character or story? Why Edgar Allan Poe in particular?
Some of my favorite memories of like reading things in school are reading Poe. The number one memory that I really loved enjoying was it was a high school class, English. I can't remember if it was junior or senior year, but I remember reading The Cask of Amontillado. And that is the story where one dude gets his friend drunk and walls him up in the wine cellar to suffocate and die. Very grim, but very Poe. And the cool thing about Poe is that he never really spells out exactly what his character motivations are. He's very psychological, but he leaves a lot up to the reader to try and figure out. And that was so fascinating to me to read about this dude walling up his friend in the wine cellar. I wanted to know what the beef was because clearly they're beefing,
Yeah.
and what would it take? How bad must it be to go to that level? So that is stuck in my mind and stuck with me from an inspiration, imagination standpoint, and that happens to be the first story I adapted for Poe Noir was The Cask of Amontillado, and that it kind of goes back to that one memory in high school of reading that story.
And in the film noir, it's pretty obvious you that's probably what influenced you when you were in that industry. But what why film noir also?
Very similarly, there's a lot of psychology involved in that. It's a genre, but it also kind of transcends genre. It really digs into like the dark underbelly of society, the dark underbelly of like the self and like the individual. And it too can really be striking and addicting, kind of dig into character motivations and why people do the things they do and why is our environment, why is our world this way. It's very broad, but that is the part of noir that has always kind of sucked me in. And of course, there's the visual style, which that's the part that everybody knows from noir is the shadows, the contrast. There's a very distinct look to noir that I've loved from the get-go. So you put that all together in the pot, and that's what I'm cooking, and it's been very cool and very I guess addicting is the right word. I've been into it, and I cannot put it down yet. So
yeah, like honestly, like anything you love, whether it's music, whatever it is, some people can call it addicting. It's just we just love doing what we do. Like I can't stop talking on this microphone. You could call it an addiction. So yeah, I totally get that. Now, how'd you find Graham? How'd he become your artist? Where'd you find him? Where'd you meet him?
Craigslist, believe it or not. We put a notice on Craigslist, and I got dozens and dozens and dozens of responses, most of which were immediately put in the discard, just by sheer volume. But when I saw he had some examples of a comic he drew that was set in like late 1800s, early 1900s Paris. And I set the Cask of Amontillado adaptation in Depression era New Orleans. So there's some commonalities between that period of time in Paris and the way New Orleans looks, heavy French influence. So just seeing him depict Paris in that very noir-esque way, that really drew my attention and reached out and made a connection. And we've grown together ever since.
You're in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm based in LA.
Is Graham in LA or where is he?
Graham is based in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And have you guys met since, or is it just all remote?
We have met once. I was in Michigan a few years ago, and I was able to drive to his part of the state, and we hung out for about half a day, and it kind of solidified and reaffirmed, like, how well we were able to connect and create together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you were saying a minute ago, it sounds like at that point you guys already have like a second language. Like you said, you call him out and you write for Graham. So it wasn't, I'm assuming, not too awkward, the meeting, because you guys already knew each other from,
No, it was long. It was long due when we met. So
yeah. Which brings us to the Dupont Files. Tell us about the title. Tell us about that one.
Okay, so Poe is more or less the father of detective fiction. He wrote a handful of stories with Inspector Dupont, set in Paris in the 1800s. And they're so influential that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle credits him for influencing Sherlock Holmes. The Inspector Poirot character has also been influenced by Inspector Dupont. And what I've done with that detective character that Poe created is I've pushed that forward another century, also set in New Orleans. And we've kind of made him the archetypal, hard-boiled detective that is a common trope in film noir.
Why New Orleans? Why settled in New Orleans?
It had to do with the source material because Paris is described in detail in some of these Poe stories, and it's almost a character unto itself. And I needed an environment that was analogous and really rich and kind of iconic and visually interesting. And I think it's fitting the bill.
Yeah, so there's two of them, and by the way, I have a link to everything on the show description, show notes for you guys to get it. The obvious question, I guess, is when will there be a chapter 3?
Chapter 3. Well, chapter 2 is not quite out yet. Free Comic Book Day in a week and a half coming up is going to be our debut for issue 2. And we're gonna be working. We are still working on issue number 3, and we hope that it will be out within the year. I'm aiming at WonderCon at the very latest, so that would be next March. Hopefully sooner, depending on how our lives work and how we're able to manage our time.
Yeah. Like I always say that life gets in the way, so so a lot of people don't like to promise things, especially right now, because you can say a certain day, but then who knows what's going to happen. It could be hopefully not. Knock on wood here, another shutdown or war. Seems like now who knows what's going to happen. So
we've had shipping snafus that have gotten in the way. So and that's completely beyond our control.
Yeah. So speaking of, are you going to be at any conventions or you have any appearances? You kind of teased one there coming up.
Yeah, I buried the lead there. I'm going to be at Four Color Fantasies in Rancho Cucamonga for Free Comic Book Day. That is Saturday the 2nd of May. Really hyped to go and be there. I was there in 2024 with Chris and the gang, and they throw on a great party, and I'm very excited to join them once again. Beyond that, we are going to do Fan Expo Chicago in August. Got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping to drag Graham with me. It's not every day that we both get to table together, so I think that would be an amazing occurrence if I can manage to get him from Michigan to Chicago, but that's the plan right now. And we're also booked for the LA Comic-Con in October, and we're going to go back to WonderCon again next spring. So that's on the table so far. Hopefully more. We're working on more, but those are our confirmed appearances so far.
Yeah, I mean, for Graham, it is in the area. I used to live in Green Bay. I think you were originally from Chicago, so
I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a drive, but still in the area. It's a lot. Tell them it's a lot closer than driving from from Michigan to San Diego. For example.
Oh, for sure.
So there's that. So
just a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I have everything linked up on the show description, but they like hearing it from you guys, the guests. Give them websites, social media, everywhere where they can follow you.
We are on Instagram and Blue Sky and Facebook, and you can find our books in print on indieplanet.com. That's indie with a Y, INDY planet.com. And we recently went up on Global Comics, which is a digital platform, and I'm really happy with how our books are being presented on that platform so far. So shout out to Global Comics for hosting us.
Yeah, like I said, I have everything linked up on the show description. Just click either on the covers. It'll take you to there's a print and a digital version you can get, or get both if you want to. If you're a collector, you'll want to get both. Tim, thanks a lot for coming on. You are welcome back anytime, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Four Colors.
Thank you so much for having me, Henry.